Hello everyone, my name is Ajay, and in this section we are going to discuss about Azure Express Route. Basically, Azure Express Route is a connectivity between your data centers or maybe the co-location facilities to Azure, and it is going to be kind of the private connectivity, so you don't have any dependency on the internet. So let's get started. So basically, the Express Route lets you extend your on-prem network to Microsoft Cloud or a private connection with the help of a service provider. And we are going to discuss in depth what is going to be the different models provided by service provider, and there's a different flavor which is going to be your Express Route Direct. We will discuss in detail. So use case for express route when we should go for this kind of connectivity. So most likely you're looking for faster and reliable connection to your Azure services. Then you might have some sort of storage, backup, and disaster recovery kind of setup. The third, you want to expand or extend your data center capabilities. Then you might have a requirement for predictable, reliable, high throughput connections. The last one is going to be the secure connections. Maybe you deal with the kind of the banking segment and security is going to be the priority. That time you can go for Express Route Direct and use the MaxSec. Let us try to discuss more about these features. So let's discuss the first feature, which is going to be the faster and reliable connections. You can connect your on-prem data centers to Azure over the VPN, which is based on the internet, but internet is not going to be reliable and predictable connection. And top of that, for terminating any sort of IPsec VPN connectivity, it is going to have some sort of the limitation in terms of how much load your VPN gateway can take. So that is also limited. And when you're running storage, backup, and recovery services, those need a lot of data transfer. So you need something which should be dedicated for you and doesn't have any limitation in terms of the data transfer. The third point, extend data center capabilities. If you want to operate in a hybrid mode, maybe you have on-prem here, then you want to keep some services on cloud. This is on-prem, and there is some sort of the load sharing which happens for running those applications. So you need something, a kind of the dedicated connection, which is not based on internet. The fourth, predictable, reliable, and high throughput connections. Internet you cannot predict, but if you know I'm terminating my on-prem and this is going to be the nearest service provider, this is going to be my bandwidth. So based on that, you can definitely predict how is going to be the latency, how is going to be the throughput, and you're going to have a lot of control because these circuits are going to be private and dedicated for you. On top of that, security, it matters. When we talk about secure connection, internet definitely is not the secure connection. You need to put some sort of encryption on top of your data transfer. However, when we talk about private connection, which is going to be the Azure Express Route, and Azure Express Route gives you two flavor. One is going to through a service provider model, and then second is you are going to have the dedicated connectivity. Both are safe, both are secure, but organizations like banking segment where security is going to be the priority. So you want to do some sort of encryption, which is not going to be layer 3, but it is going to be the L2 level encryption. So for example, this is my banking data center. This is my cloud, and I have some sort of the layer 2 connectivity. So I'm going to use MACsec encryption. So whatever the data transfer happen, it is going to be secured. And MACsec uses keys, encryption keys, and there are different ways you can implement it. There are different connectivity model which comes as an offering when you go for express route circuit. You may have co-location facility, for example, Equinix, where you are hosting some services or maybe your data center. From there, you can get the Azure connectivity. Then your service provider may extend you point-to-point Ethernet connection to your data center to provide you the Azure connectivity. You might have MPLS sort of connectivity from your service provider, and that can be extended to Azure. These are going to be your service provider models. On top of that, if you want to have a direct connection where service provider, I would say your express route service provider is not engaged, but definitely you are going to have the dependency on your WAN service provider. You can have this connectivity and extend your data center to Azure facilities where you are having Microsoft equipments, and those are going to facilitate your connections. Architecture for extending your data center may look like this. So you have an on-prem network, and these are going to be your local routers. They are going to connect to Microsoft Edge routers, MSEE, and then you are going to have the connectivity to your Express Route gateway. And this gateway is going to be the part of virtual networks. So you might be running some load here on-prem, and you might be running some load here on virtual network. So I consider this is going to be kind of the hub network. Then you might have some spokes connected here. So your workload can be distributed. And then you are going to have this express route circuits to facilitate this connectivity. In middle, you might have a service provider network as well. So that depends which model you go for. If you have part of your infrastructure which is already co-located, your network will look like this. So in this example, I have taken an example for the Unix co-location facility. And for example, if you have your infrastructure hosted like this, you might have connectivity to your enterprise offices, you might have connectivity to your public internet. On top of that, this co-location facility, it can provide you the Azure Express Route connectivity. These co-locations, here I'm quoting an example for Equinix. They have data centers across 36 global locations. For more information, you can visit Equinix website and find out where they are hosted and where they are located. And then Equinix Fabric, it is going to have a cross connect with Microsoft, which ultimately going to facilitate the Azure connectivity to you. Now let's understand these components, who those are going to be involved while you form the connectivity to Azure Express Route. So for first example, if you are going to involve your provider model, then as a customer, you are going to have these two devices for redundancy purpose, and then you are going to have the connectivity. And this is going to be Equinix Fabric, where you are going to terminate these links. And the other end, it is going to interface with your MSE. So MSE stands for Microsoft Enterprise is. These are not the data center, but these are the kind of the routers. Those are going to be co-located in these Equinix-like colo facilities. And then you are going to ultimately have connectivity to your express route circuit. When you go for the direct model, the provider is not going to be there, but yes, you are going to have the dependency on these WAN links. So you are going to have two WAN links. Those are directly going to connect to your MSEE, and then further you are going to do some pairing with your circuits. It's time to create Express Route circuit. So you can go to the Azure portal and search for Express Route. You're going to see two options. One option is going to be your Express Route circuit, and second option is going to be the Express Route Direct. Here we are going to focus on Express Route circuit, which is going to be basically a provider model option. So when you click on that, click on the new, create Express Route. The basic configuration, you need to fill your subscription, you need to assign a resource group, then you need to choose a reason. Put a name which is very meaningful for you, and then under the configuration tab, which is going to be the second tab, you need to choose provider. And in the provider list, you are going to see those options, and those are I'm going to discuss later on in upcoming slides. Here, let's try to understand those SKUs also. So you see options, local, you see standard, you see premium, and then the billing model is going to be the metered or it is going to be the unlimited. So now in next slide, let's discuss those SKUs. What are those and when we should choose which one? So we have seen three options, local, standard, and premium while choosing the SKU type, and they have a different meaning. So let's understand when you should choose and what. So while creating the express route circuit, we were mentioning which region it belongs to. So if you have your connectivity and then you're connecting to the express route, and if you want to only connect to the resources in that particular region, you should go for the local. In a one geography, you might have multiple regions. If you want to access those all regions in a particular geography, then you should go for the standard one. And if you want to have a global connectivity from one express route circuit, for example, this might be terminated here in London, and you want to access your resources in US East, Japanese, Brazil, or maybe any other region, you should go for the premium. Now, let's try to understand the port type. So when you provision the express route circuit, you get two options. One is going to be the provider, another one is going to be the direct. So when you choose the provider option, that is going to be the hosted services. What it mean when you multiple customers, for example, customer one, customer two, customer three, and many, they connect to the co-location facility. In this example, I'm quoting Econex. So let's understand this is Econex. This is going to be the ingress port where you get connected to the fabric, and this fabric is going to be connected to MSE, which is going to be the Microsoft router. And this link, what you see, this is going to be the shared port. What it mean, this connectivity is already provisioned, and from this connectivity you get some portion of the bandwidth you provision for. And then you are going to have these API setup. So that is between your service provider and Microsoft Azure. Whatever the key you generate, based on that, it's a kind of the validation which get going to get provision your requirement of the bandwidth. And this is already in there. So this connectivity already exists. You just need to provision the port and get the desired results. And the second option you see is a direct. What it means, you are you may have multiple location for your data centers or maybe the offices, and this time when you connect to the ingress port, this egress port is going to be dedicated for you. So it's not going to share the bandwidth across multiple customers. API calls remain as it is. It is for the validation, it is to make your process simpler, and configuration is going to be automated. So in this example, when you go for the dedicated, your service provider is going to do this cross connection which is going to be dedicated for you. So here I'm going for a provider option, and you need to choose your provider as well, where you want to co-locate your facility or maybe whatever the service provider you want to choose. So I'm choosing Airtel here. And when you choose Airtel from the drop down, you see two locations. I can have connectivity from Chennai and Mumbai. These are going to be the two facilities which provides Azure connectivity. And when you choose a provider Airtel, so in this example, I have chosen a Mumbai 2. For example, if I have a data center which is located in Mumbai 2, so definitely I want to connect to somebody who is having the co-location facility in Mumbai. So when I choose this location, so it is going to give me the bandwidth option. So I can go from 50 Mbps up to 10 Gbps when I go for the shared model. After giving all those parameters, it is going to ask you to create a virtual circuit which is going to be used for express route. And these are going to be the parameter which you have passed. So here in this example, if I have a customer one, I'm going to connect to service provider. Service provider is going to have the shared port, and this fabric is going to connect to MSE. And from here, I can have two type of peering, which is going to be Microsoft peering. If you want to access passive resources, you will go for the Microsoft peering. If you want to go access your IS resources, you are going to use private peering. Now here I see my deployment for Express Route Circuit has been completed. And in my resource, which is test, if I go to the overview, it is going to give you a lot of information. So first saying this express route circuit belongs to this resource group and circuit status is enabled. My location is going to be the West India. My provider is going to be the Airtel, and the provider status is going to be not provisioned. And why do we see? Because in reality, I'm just showing here on the portal, I do not have such connectivity. And to get this provisioned, I need to connect with the service provider to do the provisioning, etc. So definitely you're going to see not provisioned if you don't have the real connectivity. Peering location, we have chosen Mumbai 2. My bandwidth I wanted to opt is 50 Mbps, and this is going to be the service key. This is very, very important. Based on this service key, API call will happen between your service provider to your Azure to validate that this is the right location and this is the bandwidth, etc. And I'm going to show you how it looks like when you go for the real port provisioning. Here you can see three type of peering. One is going to be the private peering, as we discussed. If you want to extend your data center and want to operate in hybrid model, then it's going to be the Azure private peering. Then you have the Microsoft peering. Azure public is depreciated. If you have the old services running, it might show you, but we are going to focus in this video throughout on private and Microsoft peering. In configuration section, you can see all these parameters by passed by you, and you have option to change these parameters as well. I have created another circuit which is going to be in UAE North. Peering location is going to be Dubai 2 and provider is going to be the MegaPort. And the reason for choosing, I'm going to show you some real-time examples from MegaPort, and MegaPort doesn't have any co-facility in Mumbai. So it's going to provision a new service key, and we are going to see how we are going to validate it from the portal. So MegaPort is going to be a portal for you from where you can provision these kind of services. So here you see in the example, I'm logged into MegaPort portal, and from here I need to create a port. So once you create port, it is going to ask you what is your location. So here we need to mention the UAE. So when connecting to these co-location facilities. Obviously, you want to connect your data center, or maybe you might have a co-location already exist. You want to choose a location. So these are the location from where the MegaPort is going to have the presence. In this example, since we created a circuit in UAE, I'm going to choose United Arab Emirates. And once you choose your location, it is going to list down all the co-location facilities. In this example, I see United Arab Emirates. They are going to have a Equinix data center which is located in Dubai. And once you choose that particular data center, it is going to ask you that information about the port speed. So port speed, there are two offerings. You can go for 1 Gbps, you can go for 10 Gbps. Then you need to give the port name as well. That can be your choice, whatever the name you want to give. And minimum terms, you can choose it from 1 month to 12 months. And here I'm going to leave rest of the field as default. Then you can click on next. After choosing the port speed, you can mention the port name. So in this example, I'm quoting AZ_test and then go for the next. Here is the summary for the port you are going to see, and this much is going to be the cost, monthly cost, and then you can add port. After adding port successfully, it's time to create the connections. So it is going to ask you what kind of connection you want to create. And since Equinix is kind of a provider which will have connectivity to rest of the service provider as well. So from the list, I need to choose which one I want to connect. In this example, since we want to connect it to the Azure, we will choose this one. The moment you choose your cloud provider, it is going to ask you Microsoft Azure service key. And if you recall it, while provisioning the circuit, there was a specific key or a special key which was generated for your circuit. You need to put that key here. And then there's going to be the API call from this provider to Azure to validate whether that particular key is valid or not. Once you put your service key here, it is going to do the validation based on the key. So for example, we have created two circuits. One was for the Airtel, which was a Mumbai location. Second circuit I have created in UAE, which is going to be the Dubai location. So if I put my Airtel key here, the validation is going to be the field. It should be very, very specific. So I have a circuit in UAE that validation will be successfully passed. Once your validation is passed, it is going to populate these available ports. You can choose primary, you can choose secondary. Now I see my connection name. My rate limit is auto populated, and this is coming from the API call which I provision. This is the bandwidth which I provision from the portal. It is going to ask you a lot of information. So one is what is going to be your preferred A and VLAN. This is going to be the outer Q and Q tag. All these service providers, they are going to play with the Q and Q tagging. So you must understand what is Q and Q. That you can define here. And while defining Q and Q, basically you can use multiple peering over the same connection. If you go for the untagged, you will be limited to the one peering only. And then you are going to assign Azure peering VLAN, and we are going to see what it means on the portal. Let's try to understand what is Q and Q. So here we see there's a C on customer side, and here I would assume this is going to be the cloud provider side. So there is going to be the C tag, which is a tag, which is basically going to be the Ethernet tag coming from the customer end, and then service provider will have a P tag, which is going to be the provider tag. What it means, I can have multiple tags encapsulated in one tag. So for example, if I have one VLAN on the customer side, and this VLAN is VLAN 10, if I want to pass this VLAN throughout, what it means, I need to have the VLAN 10 here on the switch, then I need to have VLAN 10 here, then 10 here, 10 here, and 10 here as well. That's how the VLAN propagation works. For example, I want to establish multiple peering. So I can establish one peering on one tag. When I want to go for another one, it is going to be the VLAN 20. It means you should have 20 propagated here, 20 here, 20 here, and 20 here as well. But VLANs are very, very limited. You might have multiple customers and VLAN range is going to be exhausted very soon. So what are you are going to do? I can have multiple tags here, which is going to be your C tag. Then provider tag is going to be the special tag, for example, 100. So only 100 to be populated here. And behind 100, I can have multiple tags. So for example, I add another one. So I have three tags, 10, 20, 30. They all will be encapsulated into 100, and 100 will be known by your service provider and the Azure MSE, and customer point of view. You should be only aware about 20, 30, and 10. Similarly, those tags to be populated on Azure portal. Now, when you go to the peering, you see these three options. As I mentioned earlier, this is depreciated. So you can configure private, you can configure Microsoft peering. So when you click one of them, it is going to ask what kind of IP addresses you are going to have. So you can go for IPv4, you can choose IPv6, and you can choose both. What it means, on customer side, I might have two routers. On the cloud side, I want to do the peering. So how I'm going to form these BGP sessions. So on this particular interface, I can have v4, I can have v6 address. Similarly, on the cloud side, I need to mention v4 and v6. One IP will be used for by primary circuit, and then you will have the secondary circuit as well. It's not mandatory that you should configure both the circuits, but considering SLA, which is provided by the Microsoft, if you really want to go for 5 nines, you should go for redundancy. So on the customer side, you will have two routers, and these routers will have two separate physical connectivity. This is the VLAN ID I was talking about. This is going to be the C tag, and C tag must match on the both end. So if I say it's 10 on the cloud side, it should be 10 on the customer edge side as well. And then since you're forming a BGP session, you can go for this kind of MD5 encryption as well. So this is going to be the shared key which you need to mention while provisioning your BGP. In reality, your private peering will look like this. So you have one router, second router for the redundancy, you have one primary connection, you have secondary connection, and here I'm talking about Azure private connectivity, which is going to be the hybrid model. You can choose the VLAN C tag, what you want to propagate. Then you are going to have the private ASN number. It is going to be your choice. Then you need to allocate the subnet. What kind of subnets you want to use is going to be the /30. What we have seen, this is for the primary circuit. Second subnet is going to be for the secondary circuit, and this is going to be the private subnet. This is coming from this corporate network, what you want to advertise towards your cloud. So this is going to be the BGP advertisement from these routers. And then you will have those VNets where you want to reach. Once these things are provisioned, You can see your ARP record, you can see your routing table, and you can see view route table summary. And this is how your Microsoft and or maybe the public peering will look like. So you definitely need the public IP addresses, and it is, you can see it is from /30 range. However, it is not going to be the network which you want to advertise towards the BGP. So in this example, it is going to be the different C tag, which is going to be 280 in this example. This is going to be your public ASN number, and this is the subnet which you want to use for the private subnet. This is secondary, and this is your public subnet which you want to advertise towards the cloud. One best practice is going to be when you go for both. I mean, definitely since it's public in the nature, all these IPs are going to be the unique. You're not going to have any conflict. When you go for private peering, those should be part of the VRF. Apart from peering, there's one more step which is involved when you want to operate in hybrid mode. You need to add your connections. This connection, it is going to be part of when you want to extend your data center to cloud. It means it's going to be the hybrid. And from these connections, you are going to add a connectivity to your VNet. And while adding this connectivity to the VNet, you are going to add this connection to your VNet gateway. If you have seen my previous videos, we talked a lot about the gateways, and this time this gateway is going to be the unique. In my earlier videos, whenever we created those gateways, it was type VPN. And this time, when we are dealing with the express route, your VPN gateway type is going to be the express route. So basically, you are going to link that particular circuit to a express route gateway, which is going to be part of the VNet wherever you want to reach. There is another scenario also. This is going to be the offering from Microsoft Azure, which is going to be the global reach. So in this example, you can see if you have a data center in San Francisco and you are going to connect this circuit to a location which is going to be the US West. Similarly, you have data center in London and you have another express route circuit which is connecting to your UK South. I can connect my resources to US West and UK South. Similarly, from here, I can connect UK South and US West. How about if I want to do some sort of inter-data center communication using the Microsoft backbone? So I can opt for the global reach and it will look like this. So if there is some traffic which is intended to go for these data in between these data centers, I can use those private virtual circuits and my data transfer will look like this, and it is going to be bidirectional. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.